As always, dynamic conversations had here in this room at the DAC for our Michigan Chronicle, Pancakes and Politics. You can see people networking, talking about important issues that impact the city, like development and future growth of Detroit. Well, this is one you don't want to miss. Pancakes and Politics. It starts right now.
My name is Kathy Ned, and I am the president of Real Times Media News Group. And the topic today is Big Projects, Big Impact. Before we get started, I want to make sure that you all are aware. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts. Get your pictures if you take them. We'd like to collect them in hashtag Pancakes and Politics 2023. And we'll have that on the screen from time to time. So at this time, I'd like to introduce the CEO of Real Times Media and the publisher of the Michigan Chronicle, Mr. Hiram E. Jackson.
Good morning. Welcome to Pancakes and Politics. It's our 18th year. Isn't that amazing? Give yourselves a round of applause. Just want to announce that Mr. Bob Riney will not be joining us this morning. He's under the weather. Called us a couple of days ago and kind of gave us a heads up. We thought he'd be better this morning, but he's not. Bob's a great friend, great steward of the community, and I know he hates missing this. So we're going to go with the show with two amazing panelists, and you will not be disappointed. We started Pancakes and Politics in 2006 with the idea that not everybody was at the table when it came to discussing big public policy issues. And we just felt that common sense was that you can't come up with a great solution if you don't have all perspectives at the table. And so this gathering this morning starts like the tradition is March. It kicks off spring. It's going to be 55 degrees today, right? 55 degrees. But it's almost like a rites of passage. How many of you guys are new here? How many of you guys are new this morning? Great. So this is like a rites of passage for Detroit. And, we curate the best panels. We think we have the right discussions at the right time with the right people. And we believe, I'm a little biased, of course, but we believe that this has become one of the best forums in southeastern Michigan discussing issues that impact all people. All races, socioeconomic levels, all four counties in the region, gender issues. And so this is not something you can do for 18 years without great partnerships. Many of the companies that are in this room today helped us launch this 18 years ago. And we appreciate that. We know that companies are very thoughtful and careful about how you invest your dollars. And the fact that you spend your money with the Michigan Chronicle means that you believe in our programming and you trust our judgment. And just on behalf of all the Real Times Media employees across the country and the Michigan Chronicle employees here, I just want to say thank you. We appreciate you. I especially want to thank our platinum sponsors. They've been our platinum sponsors for a while now. Walker Miller Energy Services, thank you. DTE, thank you very much. Signal Restoration. I saw Frank out here someplace. The air is just different when Frank is in the room. Thanks for attending, Frank. I haven't seen you in a couple of years. We appreciate you. Delta Dental, a new platinum sponsor. Please give Delta Dental a round of applause. And our broadcast sponsor, General Motors. Thanks to General Motors. And our Overdrive sponsor, Business Leaders for Michigan. Thank you all. So I'm going to break one of our rules here. We normally don't announce the panels until maybe 30 days out. We do that because we pick topics and issues. We don't pick people. And we try to make the topics relevant and timely. And to do that, you can't do that 6 months out because that's, in my opinion, not very authentic because you don't know what issues are going to be pressing. This issue that we're discussing today, these gentlemen are talking about things that are happening this month, next month, and the month after that, and we think that's important. But because I've gotten a lot of questions about this year's schedule, and because this is the first year where we actually did it 60, 90 days out, I'm going to share it with you. So next month, the topic is, can Southeast Michigan become a go-to destination for startups and high-growth companies? We have Mr. Doug Song. We're really excited about Doug. He's the co-founder and president of the Song Foundation. He's the former co-founder and CEO of Dual Security. You're going to enjoy hearing from Doug. Ms. Marlo Rencher, the new president of Detroit Means Business. Mr. Quentin Messer, CEO of MEDC, and Patty Glazer, executive vice president, Invest Detroit over ID Ventures. And they're going to discuss how we can make Southeast Michigan a kind of a go-to destination for startups. And in May, I'm excited that we're going to have the chairman and CEO of General Motors, Mary Barra. She's going to grace the stage. Excited to have her. This is her second time. She joined us during COVID with a virtual panel. So very exciting season. We're going to do 4 overdrives thanks to business leaders from Michigan and General Motors. Those are going to be exciting as well. All right. Now I want to announce Ryan Marshall, WWJ. Ryan, are you out there? Ryan is in the house representing WWJ 950. We appreciate having WWJ here. Rob Davidak, thanks to you. We appreciate you. And let me just say, we do not prep our panelists. We don't give them questions. And of course, we don't prep our audience. I have no idea what questions you may ask today. And we like it that way. We want this to be a very transparent conversation about issues that impact all of us. And so I really appreciate Bud Dinker and Kofi Bonner for being here and Bob Riney for agreeing to be here, because not all companies want to come be on this stage. Not all of them want to be transparent and have a discussion with the community about their projects. And we've asked several companies to come talk about this, minority involvement, community involvement, supplier diversity, because when you're asking the community to support you, the common sense is that you come and share information with your partner. Is that right? Is that fair? So we appreciate this panel for being here. So without further ado, I want to introduce Mr. Mike Bickers. He's the regional president of Detroit and Southeast Michigan for PNC Bank, our presenting sponsor for the, I think, 8th year. Thank you.
You guys know me. I'll be brief because I'm excited about the panel. So obviously it's been an interesting week in banking. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever had so many heart palpitations in 2 days. But I want to assure Hiram at PNC we've got just enough left to pay for the sponsorship. Thank you. I would tell you, and coming up with, in my days through banking as we got involved with projects like you're here about today, as we came up, it was the missing link was collaboration. And we would have a project over here and something over there and some group over here. And then at the end of it, nothing connected really well and the outcomes weren't clearly defined. And so when everything was said and done, you couldn't determine what exactly was accomplished. And today, I guarantee you the 2 gentlemen that will come up will be very clear about what they hope to accomplish with all of us. But also, at PNC, we'll continue our work always around children and young adults so that they live healthy, nourished and rich lives to be able to take part one day in what we're about to talk about today. So thanks for having us, and thanks for allowing us, Hiram and Dennis, to be the presenting sponsor. Have a great day.
Mike, I can confirm the check has cleared. Now I want to introduce to you our partner, Dennis Archer Jr., chairman of 1642 Ventures. He's more than just the moderator here. We work as a team, his staff and our staff, and we really work together to try to curate these panels and to make sure the topics are relevant. So have a good morning, enjoy the pancakes and the coffee, and we'll see you again. Dennis.
I don't know if I should be worried about my position here, because last night Hiram's team sent me a run of show about 9 o'clock, a revised one, and they said, you have to introduce Ryan Marshall, and they said, we want you to talk about the next 3 segments. And as I stood backstage and Hiram did those things, I was wondering if he's sending me a signal, but hopefully not. Good morning, everyone. Let me first say, in a month that we are celebrating women and their contributions and accomplishments. Good morning to the ladies. Ms. Baldwin, good morning. To my companies, who ironically are all run by women, some of them are here this morning joining us. Good morning. And when you talk about leadership, leadership matters. And leadership matters now, I think, more than ever. And it's not just the leader at the top. It's the people they surround themselves with. It's the governance entities that are meant to oversee them. Mike mentioned a prime example of what we see happening on the West Coast with the bank. It's pivotal times. Voting rights are under attack. Significant historical facts in our history are trying to be wiped from our students' education. Leadership matters. And it's very interesting, and excuse me for this, Hiram, but some of this shit you just can't make up. I was in a meeting yesterday, and we were talking about, and I serve in the governance role, and we were talking about a position that was going to be significant for diversity. And the conversation that went on was, I don't want to go into it for proprietary reasons, but was very disappointing in how they were approaching the position versus any other position in the organization. And one of the people that was on that call sent me a text, and this is the shit you really can't make up, for real. He sent me an article that was written by an esteemed Wall Street Journal reporter. And the nature of the article was, perhaps Silicon Valley Bank was too focused on diversity, and so they missed a mark, and that's why they're having these problems. Can't make it up. I'm not going to say the S word again, but you can't make it up. And so this is why these conversations are so important. So I thank you all that are in the room supporting. I thank those of you in corporate leadership that have accepted our invitation to talk about these issues that are not always easy. And for those that don't want to come talk to this organization, don't come asking for help later. On a brighter note, Kofi, will you come on out? Kofi Bonner has been in Detroit now for a few years and has really taken the reins and gotten involved in the community. As we all know, regarding Bedrock, almost $6 billion in investments, over 100 properties in downtown Detroit, significant contributors to the skyline. Most importantly, Kofi, in my opinion, is the significant philanthropic contributions that Dan Gilbert, Jennifer Gilbert, and your organizations are making, committing $500 million of their personal money to benefit Detroit and its organization. So, Kofi, we thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass it on.
And Bud, if you could come out. Ironically, this was not intentional, but Bud also represents probably one of the top 2 or 3 most philanthropic organizations in the community, the Penske organization. 3,200 locations, 70,000 employees, $41 billion in revenue. You're almost as big as Frank Torrey, almost, but I don't know. But Bud's titles, which I will not go through them all, but he's the president of the Penske Corporation. But Bud is president or CEO or the leading person on about 5 Penske companies. I'm not sure how you do it, but thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Bud, let me stick with you for a second. You know, Hiram mentioned that we have Mary Barra coming in May to speak with us. And after George Floyd happened, and against the advice of some of her closest advisors, Mary went out very publicly and said that one of her goals was to make General Motors the most inclusive company in the world. You have said very publicly that this Detroit Grand Prix is going to be the most inclusive event in Detroit. Tell us what that looks like.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Hiram, for the invitation to be here today. It's great to see a full house, sold-out house again, so congratulations on all of that, and thank you all for participating and supporting this great forum. You know, we had our event on Belle Isle for 13 years, and it was a great event. We gave over $13.5 million to Belle Isle for infrastructure improvements. It needed it, didn't it, in Belle Isle? Over $6 million in charitable contributions also we gave to the Belle Isle Conservancy, Michelle Hodges and her teams. Almost $20 million of give back to Belle Isle in that time. However, in my mind, it was time to move on. You know, it was intrusive to the public users of that park for the time that we were there. We knew that. I think the greater good we gave back, obviously, was outweighed that. But it was also, in my mind, an exclusive event. Not all the circuit was open to the public. We couldn't use it all for that purpose. You had to bus people in and bus people off. We could only have about 30,000 people a day. So in my mind, it was exclusive, not inclusive. And the day we announced, the day this idea came to us, Michael Montry and myself, was only 18 months ago. It hasn't been long. And it came to us because of what happened in Nashville, Tennessee. And in Nashville, Tennessee, we had an IndyCar race in the streets of that city. And we saw what it brought from the community perspective, what it brought from a diversity perspective, and what it brought from an inclusive perspective. And we said at that time, let's figure out a way to make it happen in Detroit. And you know how hard that is. How do you bring an event to a city without closing down businesses, without disrupting your commerce and making that all happen? But we're going to do that. Inclusiveness. Number one, we have to involve the communities. Letty Azar of our team has gone out, and now we have, with the help of PNC Bank, with the help of Delta Dental and several other community partners, we're going to bring down over 30 businesses from the surrounding communities, what we call the Detroit Straightaway, the Grand Prix Straightaway in Cadillac Park. They're going to display their wares. We're creating a pathway for people to bring down their businesses from District 1 of Detroit or District 3 of Detroit and be inclusive in that. We've already engaged our high schools who are creating these great pieces of art, these great 4-foot Indy cars that they're designing and painting. We're engaging the Detroit Boys and Girls Clubs who are going to be creating murals on the walls of the walls we have around our race course. They're not going to be concrete. They're going to be murals created by the kids from the Boys and Girls Clubs. So our community engagement is what was so important. And on top of that, I announced immediately over half of the race circuit, over half of this race circuit of 1.7 miles will be open for free. Open for free. And that That hasn't happened before. It hasn't happened before. You can't do it at a ball and stick game, can you? You can't do it at a Tigers game or a Lions game or a hockey game, or it hasn't happened anywhere else in a motorsport event. We're going to do it here. So guess what? Jefferson Avenue, where cars are going to come down that straightaway at 195 miles an hour, legally, will occur that weekend. And all of Jefferson Avenue will be open for free. Hart Plaza, where our entertainment's going to be, following the Movement Festival the week before, is free. Our riverfront, we're going to celebrate the winners on Victory Circle, is free. So the only place you're going to have to pay is in a grandstand or a chalet. Everywhere else we designed it is going to be open for free. And by the way, we have a program we adopted in Indy called NXG Racers. It's a STEM program that we've involved Cass Tech and other high schools already. We're going to bring those go-karts to our city, involve our high school students in a STEM program, and their reward, they get to learn how to race go-karts in the streets of Detroit that weekend. So the involvement is in our high schools, our other schools as well too, our boys and girls clubs, our businesses, the community, to bring them downtown in a way we haven't done it before. That's how I spell inclusiveness.
Bud, stick with you for a second. Talk to us a little bit about the economic impact of the city, the dollars that will flow into the city because of the tourism and the visitors and the race folks themselves.
You know, the business part of it's very important. There's 280 businesses within a 15-minute walk of the Renaissance Center. Remember, the Renaissance Center, GM's headquarters. And by the way, I want to mention this before I forget. Terry Radigan, you're over here somewhere. Terry, raise your hand. Terry Radigan, this event would not be possible without General Motors. Let me just say that. So Terry, we need a round of applause as well. So thank you for being our partner. And so this event, what was the question again?
Economic impact, dollar amount.
Impact, dollars. Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. We, on Belle Isle, our economic impact every year was about $45 to $50 million of impact. But remember, most folks came down and parked in a parking deck and took a bus to Belle Isle, got in their car and left. We had a lot of people stay in hotels. We bring thousands of people to stay in our hotels, our bars and restaurants. University of Michigan has estimated our impact now between $75 and $100 million. That's big for our businesses. You got to park at Comerica Park and walk down, take the Q line. You got to park at a parking spot downtown, walk in, pass our restaurants, pass our bars, pass these great hotels we have downtown too. So we've already filled up many of the hotels downtown because of the international audience we're going to bring in. When you have an event in the streets of any event, by the way, there's only 16 cities in the world that have a downtown street course, and now we're one of them in the world. So put that in perspective of how fortunate we are to have this event. So that economic impact, Dennis, is going to be immense to our businesses at a time when we need it the most.
Thank you. Kofi, Bud is talking about free admission, free this and that. Are you giving away free rent?
No. Not to you, anyway.
You know, everyone is, I thought y'all would like that one. Everyone is, I think, generally aware of, because anywhere you go downtown, you see it. You look around downtown, and the highest, newest buildings under construction are being repositioned. You're overseeing all of those projects. Talk to us about the 2 or 3 that you're most excited about now and the impact that those will have on the greater downtown area and Detroit as a whole.
Sure, thank you. Well, first, thanks for having me here, and Hiram, thanks for inviting me. Bud, good to see you again. By the way, I would like to be in one of those go-karts. I'm just saying. But I will say, just before I even answer the question, I mean, everything you said is just music to my ears, because as you say, as people come into the downtown, as they are occupying those bars, as they're occupying the restaurants, as they're occupying those hotels, chances are they're probably in our spaces. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing for us. It's certainly a good thing for the city of Detroit. So I always used to say when folks would propose really grand civic events, and there's usually community opposition of some sort, right? And I'd always say, and at some point I was a city manager, and I'd always advocate for those grand city events. And I said, guys, great cities do great things. And this is a great thing, which will not only hit the national stage, it will hit the international stage. So thank you for those efforts. So wow, I've been here about almost 2.5 years, and I've had the pleasure of ushering in sort of Dan and Jen Gilbert's vision for the last 10 years of Bedrock. And it's so hard to pick a favorite. I gotta tell you, I'll tell you, it's like when you have 5 kids and you love all your kids equally, right? For different reasons. And sometimes some are a little more painful than others, but you still love them. But I will say that the current apple of my eye is the book tower. Yesterday I had the opportunity to walk through the book tower, and we did a little event congratulating and thanking the tradespeople who have worked so diligently on that. And that'll be opening up to the public within the next few months. But it is a tremendous adaptive reuse of that building. I mean, it's the simple elegance in that building. I think when you walk into it, you will all be taken back to the 1920s, the restoration, the marble. It's just wonderful. You will probably open up another restaurant in there if you could. I'm telling you.
Free rent.
It is absolutely wonderful. But beyond that, I mean, people are always talking about these days how it's important to reposition buildings, and we probably do that better than anybody else in the country. But this particular building, built in the 1920s, early 1920s, was an office building, sort of defunct for many years, and the care and attention paid to every detail to bring it back. So now not only will it be apartments, but it will also have an extended stay period, sort of a hospitality piece. It will also have offices and restaurants, and it's just great public spaces for events such as this. So the whole community can find something to do within that building. And we're really excited by that building. And then as you walk down the street, you get to the Hudsons, and man, you can see it now. Big hole in the ground 2.5 years ago, and here it is towering, as I call it, the exclamation point on Woodward. And it's absolutely terrific where it is today. You can see the office block very clearly, and the tower just keeps rising. And by the end of this year, maybe about 45 stories. By the end of next year, 60 stories. And early 2025, we'll all be invited in. It's exciting.
We look forward to it. For those of you who have questions, as you know, many of you have been here before, we take questions from the audience. So number one, Ryan will be walking around shortly for you to get on the mic and ask questions. He's over here under the exit sign. And also, Charisma Tatum will be collecting, who's over here in the gray and blue dress, will be collecting the cards if you have a card on your table. Kofi, you worked with the NFL franchise for a number of years, several years in Cleveland, and Bud's talked about the economic impact of the Grand Prix and races around the country. And I think a lot of us have either seen or experienced those. I had no clue that the NFL draft was such a big deal. Why is it such a big deal?
Well, part of it is all you got to do is show up in that city and you get really close to the action. You don't have to pay too much, and every team is represented. So it's the one place where every team is represented in a particular city at any particular time. And there's all kinds of bets and things going on behind the scenes. And it's just I shouldn't say one big party, it's hundreds of big parties throughout the city. And again, it's great cities doing great things, and the NFL draft will be another great event for this city. And there's more to come.
Good. But tell us about, I think that, one, because it's cost prohibitive, two, because I think traditionally not a lot of black kids in the hood grow up wanting to be race car drivers. Racing at all levels, all the circuits, none of them are really diverse. I think in a lot of ways, Lewis Hamilton has done for F1 what Tiger Woods did for golf in terms of heightening people's awareness at least. But what is the industry doing, not just from a team and driver standpoint, diversifying them, but also for businesses that want to work with in the racing industry?
A great question. You know, Penske Corporation bought the Indianapolis Motor Speedway 3 years ago, which is still the largest single sporting event in the world. Imagine having 320,000 people show up for an event on one day. You know, Roger has won that race 18 times, so we used to say he's owned the competition. Now he owns the Speedway. So we were there Monday. We're there every other week. It's Roger's gem now that we're creating this amazing tabernacle of motorsports. We also own the IndyCar Series. Let me give an idea what that means. We own the IndyCar Series. We compete in the IndyCar Series with 3 teams. We also own the series. I like to say it's like Jerry Jones owning the NFL and competing. Probably wouldn't work so well, would it? But Roger can pull that off. So the day we bought the Speedway, you know, we looked around, to your point, Dennis, and here's a story that happened. You know, the Speedway is surrounded by an inner city area, okay? It's 1,000 acres, okay? Right next door is a neighborhood that's mostly black people, okay? And we, through this NXG racing program, we invite these high school students and their parents must come as well, be part of a STEM program for each weekend. And they learn about, you know, pneumatic tires, they learn about pressure, they learn about this and that about the cars, but they also apply it to their math and science as well. Then their silver lining, their silver toy is they get to go out and race a go-kart. Roger and I were talking to a mother, and we said, what do you think about this amazing Speedway we just bought? And she goes, you know, Mr. Penske, I live 3 blocks away. I've never been here before. And he said, why? It's because you have fences and you have guards. And that to us was not inviting. And she's been there for 30 years. And that hit us right between the eyes. So we announced a program called Racing for Equality and Change. That we're hiring people for our own team. We're hiring subcontractors and vendors that provide us services. But most importantly, we're developing talent and drivers and engineers and marketing people that are not like me, okay? These are females, these are persons of color that are now doing it. And we put our money where our mouth is. Ernie Francis, who's a person of color, will be racing a race car here for that weekend, during that weekend for 2 races on our streets of Detroit, okay? His team are people that don't look like me. They're engineers. They're people that grew up through our NXG program that had a spark that said, I want to be involved in racing. These are people that went to Purdue and to Indiana University, got their engineering degree, and now work for this racing program. Beth Peretta from Birmingham, Michigan, 2 years ago, had an all-female IndyCar team competing at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. For the first time, females going over the wall to change tires, and we financially supported that program. So you're going to see this race team of black people developing in it, and our dream is to have a person of color racing in the 8500 like Billy Riggs did years and years ago, decades ago, in the next 2 to 3 years. So we have to be the example to support that. We can't count on somebody else to run that program for us. So that for us it's part of our Race for Equality and Change that we're doing as stewards and owners of the wonderful Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but also stewards and racing for this series. So you can't talk about it, you got to do it, and I'm looking forward to you guys cheering Ernie Francis on to win that race that weekend.
You know, one of the things that we started doing towards the end of last year is actually taking the subject to the streets and asking folks that aren't privy or available to be in this room their thoughts on the topic at hand. And so we call it the pulse of the streets. And so if the team's ready, I'd love to show that video, and then we can kick over to Ryan and take some questions from the audience.
As new development continues to take shape across the city, we went about talking to Detroiters, getting their take about what both excites them and concerns them about investment happening in the city.
I think Detroiters should be involved if they're building up new buildings and bringing in businesses here to the city. Let's hire the city people to work there. so that maybe some of this crime rate will go down.
I don't know nobody who would say, no, don't put that there, or don't put this there. Look at the neighborhood, bro. This neighborhood, look, I just came home from prison, actually, did 7 years. That building was not there. Feel me? So that's a good look for Detroit, though.
As a Detroiter, I feel like it's nice to have new developments if the jobs are going to be offered to the Detroit community. That would be good.
As long as the neighborhoods, they make the developments, as long as we could benefit directly from all of that, as opposed to everyone that's, all the higher ups, everyone with all the money, as long as they're not the only ones benefiting.
Well, it would make sense if they would put some affordable housing here in Detroit, because we need affordable housing. And we have a lot of homeless, but if they could afford the rent or the payments, we could put more people into those buildings.
I'm excited about the downtown area. It's a whole lot of stuff to do.
They can put jobs, new jobs. It's up to the people, though. Do you want to get a new job? Do you want a new job? Do you want to work? It's up to the people. It ain't up to the people who put the jobs there. Because if the people in the community don't want to work, they're going to fire people. Like, from other cities or neighborhoods and move them closer. Or all these houses that need to be fixed up, they're going to fix them up for their employees.
But not just the jobs. There's other ways where they could, look out for their environment. Start with the community. Ask them what they want. Where do they see a need at for themselves? And then that's where you put the developers and architects and all the other, put those afterwards. Get their input first and then add on to it, as opposed to you tell them what you're doing, and then more than not, if you already decide what it is you're going to do, what I tell you what's needed later, it's not going to happen. Yeah. It's not going to happen.
You feel me?
So bottom line, we need this new development in the
Hell
city.
yeah. Hands down, we need it.
A varied opinion, not opposed to new development, just one that first makes sense for Detroiters impacted by it. For Pancakes and Politics, Andre Ash, Michigan Chronicle.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Kofi. Good morning, Bud. Pleasure to have you guys here. Pleasure to be here. We're taking some questions from the audience this morning, and if you have your blue card, we'd love to answer any questions or ask any questions of the panelists that we have. This is a very interesting question here. This month is Women's History Month. Why aren't there women who are making more of a mark in Detroit or Michigan, i.e. Mary Color for the 4 train station project? And that could be for either one of you.
By all means, go ahead. No.
I'll take that. I'm going to think about the International Women's Month. It's important for us as a company. Remember, we have 71,000 employees out there, okay? And our diversity numbers in the automobile industry, our diversity numbers in the transportation industry far outrank the industry metrics in that area too. We celebrate that, okay? I want to also mention the fact that I have a team here in Detroit of 21 people that run the Grand Prix for me. 21 people, believe it or not, put that event on, and 16 are women. 16 are women. I had a staff meeting 2 days ago, looked around the room, and 16 are women. I'm proud of that fact. These are hardworking people that put their heart and soul into this thing. But broader than that, we need to be the example. We're a public company, okay? We need to serve our communities. There's a lot of females in this room who buy a car, aren't they? Who bought their last car was a decision maker in this room was a female? You are decision makers in what cars happen, right? You tell your husband or your partner what car you're gonna get, okay? And when you walk in that showroom, there better be people selling you a car that are female that look like you than just the male person that's selling the car. So we need to be an example of the community, and I'm proud to say that we are across our businesses.
It's a great question, and I always have a hard time, candidly, with the diversity question, because it is so obvious to me that it's the right thing to do. I'm proud to say that when I have team meetings, I don't count how many women, I don't count how many black people, I don't count because I just look around and I see they're there. And part of it is one has to recognize that in order to have a successful company, you have to have diversity of thought. Diversity of thought from all hues, all genders in the room. And I've always found that to be necessary. I always laugh at folks and say, look, I was born a black man. I'll always be a black man. I'm an African, and I've been fortunate and had several opportunities to show what I can do, been given the opportunity to show what I can do, and others have allowed me to do what I can do. And as I've done that, I've been able to rise up through the ranks. And in that process, I've had opportunities to express my thoughts. And I would suspect that my specific experience maybe created a different course of action than that which somebody else's experience might have created. And in that process, the companies I've certainly been a part of, I think have done fairly well, decently. And when I've had the opportunity to ask for opinions and I recognize that I'm getting a diversity of opinion, I often find that diversity of opinion has strengthened the ultimate decision making. So it's so sad that we're still talking about it, candidly. But it's important, don't get me wrong. It's sad, but it's important. It's important for decision makers to understand the diversity of thought is critical to the success of decision making. And that's all I'll say about that. And if you choose not to have diversity of thought of people in your space as you're making decisions, well, you will probably get decisions that are tainted in one particular way and don't necessarily reflect either the opinions or the potential opportunities of the greater population that you're trying to lead. So,
thank you, gentlemen.
Well said.
I do have one follow-up question. This question is for Kofi. And Dan Gilbert has an indelible footprint in this area, philanthropic. Obviously, what he's done with the Gilbert Foundation, all of the things with Bedrock, and what he's done is fantastic. Obviously, this Hudson site building is going up now, and it's going to change the entire landscape of Woodward area, but then also downtown. So my question is, for a billionaire like Dan Gilbert, his net worth is almost, $20 billion, why would a billionaire need any sort of incentives to build a building like that?
Well, it's interesting. You hear this question a lot, right? The question really is Dan Gilbert, is everything that Bedrock and Dan Gilbert does, is that all philanthropy? I think we have shown, the companies, the family of companies has shown that we have philanthropic arms that deal specifically with how we give back to the community and with pure philanthropy. And we also have business arms, which are necessary to also lead the important part of the economy of the city. And one of the things that I think people have to understand is we are trying to make the investments, our real estate investments, spread all over the city, well, it's not all over the city, all over our projects as far as they can. And in order to do that, we try to attract other developers and other capital. And when you have projects that don't necessarily, on their face, make sense economically, it is unlikely that the next developer that may need to build somewhere else in the area will ever try to go get the funding, will be able to get the funding to come in. Our ability to show, to lead the way, to show that this city is open to partnering with developers to make great buildings happen, it sets the indicator out there for others to also say, you know, this city of Detroit is willing to partner with us to make great things happen. There's certainly cities used to doing it for the more perhaps philanthropic things around affordable housing, and the city certainly is very adept at negotiating the public return on investment for the investment in the private facilities, and we're happy to engage in that negotiation because fundamentally, as we try to build each of these primarily private buildings, we also recognize that there must be a philanthropic piece to what we do, in addition to the pure philanthropy of the Rocket Community Fund and the Gilbert Family Foundation. So what I'm saying is, when we go to capital markets and we show a building, we want to show the full breadth of that building as working so that those folks in the capital markets and bankers, candidly, will maybe look at another building in there. It may not be even our building, maybe some other person's building. But in the process of negotiating for the public incentive into that particular building, we also recognize that we have to provide some community benefit that hopefully matches and maybe even exceeds that particular public giving that we received.
Another question from the audience.
We have another question. This one is for Bud. What commitment is Penske Corporation making to placing African-American males from Metro Detroit in positions of leadership or on leadership track with your company?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting that the fact that we're based here in Michigan, our home is here in the Detroit Southeast area. We have 71,000 employees, as you heard. But our headquarter building, believe it or not, overseeing that organization, is only 220 people. Our world headquarters is 220 people in that office building there we have up on Telegraph Road. You know, relative to the opportunities we have here, we have a lot of job opportunities in the transportation business. You've probably seen yellow trucks around, say Penske on the side, right? Those all require, you know, technicians to have them serviced. And the biggest opportunity we have right now from an employment standpoint are those technicians. Hard to find. We want people in vocational schools in our local area to come out and service those trucks and service the cars too. You know, we have one dealership in Michigan now. That's the old Earhart BMW store on Telegraph Road that we own. We always have opportunities for technician jobs there too. But I also want to say this in terms of the opportunities in the downtown area. We like to keep a pulse on what's happening in downtown. Which is why we chose the Jefferson Chalmers as the neighborhood that we gave our $5 million to a couple years ago for the Strategic Neighborhood Fund. We toured the areas of Detroit, and we picked that area because I felt that, and Roger felt that that was the area that we could make an impact with in terms of affordable housing, in terms of business corridor, but very importantly, helping rebuild a community center called Lennox Center in Ford Park. And Brad Dick, you're here somewhere. Brad's now our chief operating officer for the city of Detroit, was our partner at that time in doing that. So our pulse to the business is very much on the street level of the organizations of what's happening in Detroit. And that gave us a real connection to the people of what they needed in that community to help us be zero focused on a need that we had there. Regarding jobs for the Grand Prix, it's a seasonal opportunity, obviously. We had a job fair a couple weeks ago that we had great participation in. These are seasonal jobs that will last anywhere from 2 to 5 weeks. Remember, believe it or not, you're going to see road closures. You got to close some roads to have a Grand Prix race, okay? So starting in May, you're going to be seeing some road closures, but our construction will be going on from 7 at night till 4 in the morning. So we're not impacting what's going on in the streets. 7 at night till 4 in the morning. We need forklift drivers. We need people that are out there to help us in a seasonal standpoint. And by the way, our partners are going to hire about 800 people for that weekend, from services to food to catering to concessions. All those things are opportunities. I see Councilman Young here today in terms of, he's here today. Thank you for your partnership in that as well too, Councilman Young. We appreciate it too. And through the help of City Council in targeting us where we need to serve our needs, we need to hire those people. We need volunteers. We need 1,500 people to help us volunteer that weekend. We got about 1,000 now. We'd love to have 500 more. It's a very diverse group of people. That's all part of making this thing an inclusive event and an engaging event for our city.
Thank you very much.
Ryan, if I could follow up for 1 second. Bud, let me push you a little bit further. Talk about the opportunities to be among the 220 on Telegraph Road. What's the opportunity there to be more inclusive? You already said you're very inclusive as it is, particularly with women. But for those that would want or have an interest in being involved in management at the hierarchical level there.
Yeah, it's an interesting, it's a great company, Penske Corporation, first of all. It's a lot of opportunities across the country. I also am in charge of human resources, so it's a good question to ask me because I oversee human resources from our company's perspective. Any day of the week, we've got amazing openings across the country and around the world. We're in 9 countries around the world. You know, at Penske Corporation, I wouldn't say there's a lot of openings going on because when our people come in, they stay forever. I've been there 18 years. Roger's 86 years old. I just turned 64. I got 22 more years to go at least, right? So this is true. You don't leave. But anytime there's an opening, obviously, and they're few because there's 220 people, right? And people stay there. It's obviously pushed out to the entire audience. We hire from the community first. We hire and we promote internally first. Okay, I would say 80% of our promotions are always internal, but we always need people to come in and filtrate us as new levels of thinking as well. Whether it be legal, whether it be finance, whether it be accounting, whether it be marketing, those opportunities exist. And when they open up, they obviously go out to the public to look for those people. But once again, it's a small organization here of 220 people, but we always push it out to the local community first to hire them.
Thank you. Ryan?
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. This is an interesting question for Kofi here, and we appreciate you guys sending in the cards. We're starting to get those come in. Kofi, what commitment is Bedrock LLC making to teach high school students in Detroit or Metro Detroit area the principles of real estate or providing job opportunities for youth in this community?
Well, we're probably on as doing as much as we could be. I think there are some things that our community growth and development company, which I started 2.5 years ago, are really looking at to reach back into the community. The first thing is you got to find the community partners that are already really engaged within the community so that we are adding to the existing resources, not trying to recreate the wheel. Certainly, as I said before, the Rocket Community Fund and the Gilbert Family Foundation have long fingers into the neighborhoods and the communities. We focus primarily, candidly, on the job opportunities and creating the diversity in the job opportunities. We have a range of jobs, right, within our company. Those buildings that you see are serviced and they are, they're cleaned and they're managed and they're leased and they're built by many of our employees. And so we try to, again, ensure that as we're recruiting, we're trying to make sure that we're recruiting into the community. I personally think that it's one of the better ways to deal with getting more diversity in real estate is to connect back into the academic areas to let folks know that, frankly, there are people like myself who actually, through some perseverance and a little luck, are able to run companies. And I'm not unique. There are many diverse leaders of real estate companies, and trying to get them together to sort of participate back into academia and create opportunities through scholarship programs or such like, I think, to make it a little easier for folks to make that, to make the journey through real estate. I remember going to my first real estate conference in Las Vegas. It's called ICSC, now it stands for something else. It's a shopping center conference. And I remember the 25,000 people, I think it was. And in the main conference, there were maybe 100 black folks, maybe 200 women, and that was out of 25,000. That was like the premier real estate conference in Vegas. It's getting a little better. It's getting a little better, not greatly. So we've got a lot of work to do. But, and I'll be the first to say, we have some work to do. in order to sort of reach in and create those pathways. Career pathways are so important, but sometimes you just got to get the youth to just see that they could be. Let them see where they could be, and then maybe they'll aspire to be there, and then you can create the pathway to help them get there. And we have some work to do in Bedrock, but certainly we have a very talented group of folks who are deeply committed to the community, broader community, led by actually the Community Growth and Development Directors here, Nadia Sisse. And her team constantly are looking into ways to connect Bedrock to the community. And certainly the school's a place that we have some work to do to I think, create a bigger impact.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. Obviously, we're talking about, switching gears, we're going to come back to Bud here. I talked to Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan yesterday, and he said that with respect to reducing the carbon footprint here in the city, that it's so very important for the city to reduce emissions by 75% by 2034. And obviously, the big three automakers, GM, Ford, Chrysler, they're doing everything they can to push forward towards electric vehicles. So this question is an interesting question, and this is for you, Bud. Talk about the carbon footprint for this particular event coming up June 2nd to June 4th. And then also, can you, at any point in time, envision having a fully electric race?
Got one.
I love that question, by the way. I'm getting on my seat forward here because I love that question. It's a great question. And let me tell you, I'm glad you brought it up because I forgot to say this. I will make this a fact. We want to make this event in downtown Detroit the most sustainable event Michigan has seen. Big statement, right? How are we going to do that? How are we going to do that? Every one of the Indy cars that races on our streets for the first time this year will be using 100% renewable fuel. 100% renewable fuel. Formula One, I think, is going to be looking at it in 2026, okay? We stepped forward on that when we bought the IndyCar series and says we need to make that change. 100% renewable fuel will be used in our Indy cars on the streets of Detroit. Hasn't been done before here in racing, okay? Number one. Number two, all those big semis that come to the city, and if you go down to the paddock area, you'll see 100+ semis that bring the race cars in, bring the equipment in. Those will be using 100% renewable diesel, okay? We don't sell it in Michigan. We have to bring that from California. But we're shipping that in and ensuring that all the trucks that are on the road that support this racing series use 100% renewable diesel. The race tires, this is interesting as well. The race tires on those cars by Firestone, the shell is produced by a shrub in Arizona. All the rubber in the world comes from Southeast Asia. Imagine if we had a supply chain issue there, what would happen in the world, right? Southeast Asia. Firestone's developed a shrub called waiuli. Waiuli, look it up. It's a shrub that can be used in very little water in places that don't sustain typical crops that they're now planting. And our tires, you're going to see them, their green outline, are used by a shrub in Arizona for the IndyCar series. Nowhere else in motorsports do that, okay? Another thing we're doing, we're going to be certified by what's called the Center for Responsible Sport. It's an organization that comes and looks at events and say, are they being responsible with recycling, with their community activity, with social, with governance? Okay, and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway last year was the first big event to be certified by that. We plan to be certified by that for Detroit, to be the first event in our state to be certified by that as well too. So renewable fuel, renewable diesel, tires produced by a shrub in a desert, yes, and also to ensure those community programs I talked about are encompassing all that we're doing. And the final thing I want to say is we got another company, a third party coming in, who's going to determine the number of people visiting our city from outside, meaning who's driving here from Canada, who's driving here from the surrounding states, and we're going to do that, and we're going to offset that by buying credits for the carbon footprint of that, and investing those in Detroit in Michigan by pushing those tax credits back out to our state, not somewhere else in the country that's going to enjoy the benefit of new trees and new forestation by doing that. So those are the things I talk about from sustainability, and I'm so glad somebody brought it up, because I'm really excited, and you should be excited about those things too, that we're demonstrating that those cars racing are not producing CO2, they're operating by renewable fuel now in every one of those race cars.
We can take one more really quick question from the audience.
And just to kind of stay with the topic, this one will be for Kofi. Talk about the sustainability of your buildings.
Sure. Well, thank you. I'm glad you brought that up too. Look, our industry, the real estate and construction industry, is certainly one of the dirtiest, if you will, in terms of the environment. And so we have taken a few steps. One of them is I see DTE here, and we're very happy for the partnership we have with you all as we think about working with you much more closely in terms of buying some of the sustainable, renewable energies that you all are producing. And so that's one. Two, we are always looking for the lead standards within the buildings that we're undertaking. And so our construction and development team always seek to build to those lead standards, which essentially are the standards which define the level of sustainability of buildings. We also have an existing portfolio of, frankly, fairly old, renewed buildings. And they sometimes aren't the most sustainably efficient, let me put it that way. And so we spend a great deal of time buying the appropriate new systems in place that create much more efficient systems, mechanical systems within each of the buildings. When we replace windows, we obviously look for those windows that are the more efficient, again, energy efficient windows. Generally, I would say that we have determined internally that we would like to head towards getting to reducing our carbon footprint significantly in the existing footprint that we have, and maybe reducing it potentially up to 50% within the next 20 years or so, and maybe even better than that, challenging ourselves to do even better than that. But certainly in the newer developments that we're contemplating around Gratiot and in the riverfront area, we're actually looking to be even more sustainable and thinking through just transit systems, sustainable infrastructure systems rather than the old systems. And again, through partnerships with folks like Bosch and DTE, really thinking through the larger energy systems that can feed not only individual buildings, but whole neighborhoods. And if we're able to do that, I think we will certainly be lowering our carbon footprint in a significant way. So we constantly are thinking through that, and we have dedicated people within the company, both in terms of the forward development and the existing assets that constantly are bringing up ideas on how we can reduce our carbon footprint.
Thank you both. It's very appropriate that we end with that last question, because we will close with a sponsor video from DTE. But let me just say this. I think that this conversation this morning has made very clear the point that I started with as relates to leadership matters. In my opinion, we have two gentlemen up here, and if Bob were here, I'm sure he would have echoed many of the same sentiments shared by these two gentlemen. But we have two leaders who are committed to diversity, committed to inclusion, and committed to the community. And so for those of you who are in positions, whether a board looking to pick new leaders, whether you are in leadership looking to fill positions beneath you, I would really ask that you pay extra attention during these times and have extra sensitivity. Don't do it with blinders, do it understanding what's happening in your community and around the world. Thank you all for being here this morning, and we will close with the DTE video.
Hello, I'm Rodney Cole, Vice President of the DTE Foundation and Director of Community Engagement. On behalf of DTE and our company's 10,000 plus employees, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to say a few words. For 17 years, the Michigan Chronicle Pancakes and Politics Forum has created an open dialogue between the community, leaders, businesses, government, and more to discuss important topics that affect so many. This event has allowed all of us to have open conversations on how we can work together for the betterment of the city and communities in our region. Everyone here has made an impact in Detroit and beyond, and DTE is honored to be with all of you difference makers who joined us today. We're all committed to uplifting our communities, and that happens when we come together. Pancakes and Politics is vital in creating unification and impact. Like you, Detroit is where many of us at DTE live and work, providing key utilities to so many. Through our utility services and community commitment, we aspire to be the best in the world and the best for the world, serving as a force for growth and prosperity in our community. Discussions being had today will inspire our tomorrow. We can't wait to see what's next for Detroit. We are honored to continue our long-standing support of Pancakes and Politics. Thanks for joining us today and for everything you do to make Michigan great.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your Thursday.
All right, so we're here with Lucius Vassar here at Pancakes and Politics. So talk to me about your role here in the community and how it informs your takeaway from today's conversation.
Sure. Yes, I'm with CNAIR. CNAIR is a community development finance institution. So we work with investors to raise capital that largely has produced thousands of units of affordable housing here in Detroit. So although the speakers were focused largely on some of the great events that are happening downtown, we have a focus on making sure that our neighborhoods have affordable housing and some of these new projects have opportunities for affordable housing. So we've had the opportunity in the past to partner with the Bedrock organization. They were our partner on creating some affordable housing over in the Brush Park area. So hearing them talk about it, hearing the question that talked about the need for affordable housing, that was also referenced in the interview that you did with people on the street, keeping those community investments at the forefront is very important.
This morning really hit home, and it was something that Kofi said. He basically said, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, you can't make key decisions without diversity of thought. And I wrote it down, I sent it to somebody right there on the spot. And I'm going to walk out of here today thinking about that, thinking about how I certainly need to apply it, about how we all need to apply it. So to have people in the room who are, leaders is one thing, but to be able to hear something that makes an impact to you personally, that's kind of a game-changing, life-changing kind of experience this morning. So it was great.
Something we try to do here at Pancakes and Politics is also incorporating that community element, if you will, and it seems as if it's a married connection between those who make decisions who are in the room, and then how it impacts community. What's your takeaway from that?
Well, I think the segment you did about being on the street and talking to the folks on the street. These are the people that every day have to experience city services. These are the people that have to deal with inflation, and it's all across the state. I'm from the Upper Peninsula, so whether you're in a rural setting or an urban setting, it's the people. It's the 10,700,000 people of Michigan that we need to hear from, so we understand as leaders what we really need to do. And again, get that diversity of thought into the mix too.
So as a investor and real estate developer here in the city of Detroit, it's important to have perspectives across the board that focus on not only revitalization of the greater city, downtown and city center, but across the neighborhoods in downtown. And having significant business leaders like the Bedrock team and like Penske, who are focused on inclusive action going forward, is critical. Oftentimes, we have individuals or companies, organizations that think about, their own personal growth, but often understand that their own unique growth is key and tied to the impacts across the entire city or across the entire communities. And so that's an important conversation that we must have.